what are some unhelpful thinking patterns that can lead to self-sabotage?
Well, I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist, and everything starts with your thoughts. The way that we think about it is there is no real one objective reality. There's only how you perceive your reality, right? So two people can be in a room, they can be having the same conversation, and they could walk away with totally different feelings about what happened. And so your thoughts are really the drivers to how you feel and then how you behave. And oftentimes we fall into these little thought traps, kind of ways in which we categorize what happens to us. And sometimes they become a pattern that might not be so good for us. And so some of the thought triggers I talk about are things like black or white thinking, which means that everything's either all good or all bad. There's nothing in between. You make a mistake and you're a total loser. It's like you can't see the gray, like, wow, I've done a really good job up until now. I've only made one mistake. It's not a big deal, but sometimes we really beat up on ourselves. There's also a type of thought trigger called catastrophizing, where you always see the worst that's about to happen. I feel like this is pretty common right now in the pandemic. I feel like a lot of people are kind of fast forwarding to the future and thinking about the worst that's going to happen. And it makes sense because, again, your mind is just trying to survive and it's just trying to project what is the worst that might happen so I can be ready for it. But unfortunately, most of the times when we catastrophize, those things never happen, but we spend all of this time in anxiety. Another type of thought trigger is shoulds. These are the rules that we make up for ourselves, and we feel like we have to keep holding these incredible boundaries and incredible standards for ourselves, but you would never expect that of anyone else. And so it's sort of like, I should have done more work today. I should be a better parent. I should be a better partner. I should be a better friend. And those types of things, again, cause anxiety and sometimes even feelings of depression. And then another really important trigger is mind reading. So this happens a lot with other people. You have an interaction with somebody and then you believe that maybe they didn't like you very much. And then because of that belief, you might do certain things to actually then create a self-fulfilling prophecy where that relationship goes sour, as opposed to just holding back and saying, well, I actually don't really know exactly how they feel about me. Maybe I should check it out, or maybe I should take a deep breath. Sometimes we are very quick to jump to conclusions about what other people might be thinking of us.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. And I agree. I'm a CBT therapist as well. So when I hear you talking like that, those cognitive distortions,
right?
I definitely know that, they could definitely lead to anxiety and different things like that for sure.
Yeah. And as a cognitive behavioral therapist, you also know that the thoughts, they have so much power over you until you identify them. And that most people don't even realize that they're walking around with these sabotage triggers, as I call them, or like, as you mentioned in CBT terminology, it's called cognitive distortions. We don't realize we're doing them. They become kind of automatic.
Like what I like to use, like the exercise is like asking myself, like, is this a fact or an opinion?
Yeah.
So that's how I like to encourage people also to challenge themselves to think like, is this truly a fact? Because a lot of times if you think it's a fact while it's an opinion, you're just setting yourself up.
Right. And ultimately for me too, my goal is to really get the clients to understand, like, okay, so what are we dealing with here right now? Are we dealing with situational fear, or are we dealing with psychological fear? So really being able to break it down so they can understand for themselves, like, okay, so is there any evidence to support these thoughts? And then like you said earlier, like the thoughts, are the driving force for everything. It leads to the feelings, and then the feelings dictate our actions and our behavior. So at the end of the day, really being able to kind of break it down and say, okay, so what is the driving force behind this thought? Is it supported by anything? And then kind of just breaking it down into situational fear, psychological fear. And then hopefully over time, they'll start to really challenge those cognitive distortions.
Yeah, both of you guys are talking about great techniques here. And Vani, I really love what you said about the thought versus opinion distinction. I think a lot of times we think it's a thought, but it's an opinion. And we think it's a fact, right? I mean, so for example, when somebody says, I'm a failure, that's not a fact, that's an opinion. That's just a belief that you hold that might not even have any evidence backing it up. And that's why, Jeremiah, when you said you got to start thinking about, you got to start questioning your thoughts. Your thoughts are not everything. It's just a mental event. But sometimes when we think a thought, we think it's already happened. It's already true. And we take them for granted. And I think it does a lot of damage over time to how we feel about ourselves. And of course, the self-sabotaging behaviors that can follow.
What's up, guys? It's your girl, Margot Bingham.
Karen Parsons.
You're now tuned in.
You're now tuned in.
You're now tuned in.
You are now tuned in.
You are now tuned in
to Beard and Curls.
Beard and Curls.
Beard and Curls.
Beard and Curls.
Beard and Curls. Keep it locked.